Architectural Board of Reviews for Tuesday, for Tuesday, September 7th, starting with general business, item A. Anyone in the audience to talk to the board about anything that's not on the agenda? Step forward. Seeing no one, bring that back to item B, approval of the ABR minutes of August 23rd, 2010. Can I have a motion to open those minutes? So first by Clay, second by Keith. Do we have anything before item 1? Item 1. Item 2. Item 3. No, we don't have a 3. Just item 2. Okay, all those in favor of the minutes as reviewed, say aye. Aye. Against, motion carries. So we are on the consent agenda. Let's see. So this is consent agenda for August 16th, 2010 and September 7th. A motion to open.
So moved.
First by Clay, second by Dawn.
Calendar last week, August 30th. We had item A, 27 Mirador Drive, that final approval was submitted.
Okay.
Item B, 520 Castillo Street, final approval of condition. Item C, 2950 State Street was postponed 1 week. Item D, 516 and 518 West Los Olitos Street was continued 1 week. Item E, 1030 Cacique Street, the final approval of the landscaping and also a review after final was approved with conditions. Item F, 605 Mission Ridge Road was continued 1 week. Item G, 763 Cassiano Drive, final approval was submitted.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, great.
were those the minutes for August 30th?
Right.
Because our agenda says August 16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be August 30th.
Okay. All those in favor of the consent agenda minutes as reviewed, say aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carries. We have one abstention. Carried. Okay, so we have signed committee consent.
Mr. Chair, we need to make a motion for September 7th consent calendar.
Oh, that's right.
Consent minutes.
So do we have a motion to open September 7th?
I'll second.
First by Dawn, second by Clay.
Consent calendar today is September 7th. Yeah, item A, 605 Mission Ridge Road, final approval with conditions. Item B, 2222 Bath Street was postponed 1 week. Item C, 516 and 518 West Los Olitos Street. A review after final was approved with conditions. I'm sorry, the review after final was approved as submitted. And 2950 State Street, the review after final was approved with conditions. The consent calendar today was reviewed by Clay Orell and Chris Gilroy.
Thanks. All those in favor of the minutes as reviewed, say aye. Aye. Against, motion carries. So let's go on to signed committee consent agendas and I'm trying to understand that we have August 3rd and an August 23rd, which I have both in front of me. One says continued. What does that, the August 3rd?
Okay, so the sign committee reviewed these minutes, but they need to be ratified by the ABR. So you just need to make a motion and take a vote to ratify these minutes of August 3rd of the sign committee.
Okay. Can we do them as one, or we have to do them individually?
No, just do the whole minutes for August 3rd.
Okay, so I have a motion to open the minutes for August, the sign committee consent.
So moved.
First by Don, second by Clay. Do we have to go through them, Tony? Or just...
Did you get them in advance? Were they sent to you? Okay, I guess I can read them into the record. So this is sign committee for August 3rd. Item 1 was 401 South Hope Avenue. Got final approval. 834 State Street was continued to the conforming sign review. 3780 State Street got final approval as submitted. That was it.
Okay, all those in favor of those minutes say aye. Aye. Against, motion carries. So do I have a motion to open the August 23rd sign committee consent? First by Clay, second by Dawn.
Okay, for August 23rd signs, we had 3052 State Street was continued 1 week to conforming sign review. 3790 State Street was continued 2 weeks to consent. And 1096 Coast Village Road was continued 2 weeks to consent review.
Okay, those were reviewed by? Do you have to say that?
Bob Cunningham and Don Sherry.
Okay, thanks. All those in favor of the minutes as reviewed say aye. Aye. Against, motion carries. Okay, that closes item D and bring us back to item E, announcements, requests by applicants for...
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Sorry?
I was closing item C, and item D is a list of approved conforming signs.
Oh, that's right.
Different than the minutes that you're ratifying from sign committee.
So that's this list
Go
here?
through approved conforming signs in our meeting, so does that
Right.
still have to be on ABR?
I think so.
So that's this here?
Those are the conforming signs. Because remember, you went through the conforming signs today in the sign.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to list the approved conforming signs.
Again.
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay, so
Let's go ahead and do it for this
I'll
meeting, and I'll find
have
out if
a-
we need to do this every time.
have a first to open
Okay,
the list of approved conforming signs.
right. And we've got 2 dates. We've got conforming sign review for August 10th, and that'll be 516 East Gutierrez, got final approval as submitted, and 2220 Bass Street got final approval as submitted. And then we also had conforming signs on August 31st. Those were 231 West Pueblo, final approval as submitted. 306 East Haley Street, final approval as submitted of a review after final. 3052 State Street, final approval as submitted. 3957 State Street, final approval as submitted. 427 East Carrillo Street, final approval as submitted. And 4050 Calle Real, final approval with conditions. So I think that gets us up to date with signs.
And that's 2 dates, right?
2 dates.
Okay, and those dates are again, sorry?
August 10th
August
and
10th.
August 31st.
August 31st. So do I have a motion to approve that list of conforming signs? Is that how we do it?
We did that at sign committee.
So we just have to read it. Is that it? We just have to read it?
We're going to
for
get
public
clarified
record?
with staff.
Yeah.
We'll get that clarified because we read it today. We read those same things in sign committee today. And,
I see.
And it's just actually listing. It's not, as far as I know, it's not making a motion and
So we're just
ratifying it.
ratifying.
I think we need to ratify these also.
I'll make a motion to ratify the
First by Dawn.
conforming signs.
Second by Clay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. So we are on to item DE, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals.
Paul Zink will be stepping down from our only agenda item, item 1, and also Chris Gilliland will be absent today.
Okay. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, I have one
Dawn?
announcement.
Yes.
I'm going to be absent from the
September, is it the 13th?
13th,
The 15th? It's a week from...
2 weeks from now?
2 weeks from now. It's a Monday, 2 weeks from now.
20th.
The 20th. Yeah, I'll be absent for that meeting.
20th? Okay. Monday. Thanks, Don. Okay. Clay?
Sent on September 27th.
That's
3 weeks from now.
3 weeks from now.
I can't confirm that I could do it. I cannot confirm right now that I can do that.
Can we,
I think I can do it, but I'd like a chance to go over mine.
okay, let's just we'll keep that on hold for now.
Okay.
Tentatively have 1 or 2 options and we'll try to confirm that with the names.
Okay. I can coordinate that with you all via email. Make sure we get somebody.
Okay. Subcommittee reports? I don't think we have any at this point. Thanks. That brings us to the first item of the evening. 401.5 Old Coast Highway. Hi. Joe? Thanks. So while we set up, I'll read the minutes from the last review. So this was 22nd of March. So,
Oh, I remember this.
no.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
if you don't mind, could I give just a brief staff introduction for this item? And then the minutes
Okay.
of your last action might make a little more sense.
Okay, great.
I'm not sure when you last saw that. I don't have those minutes in front of me, but I think it was a couple months ago, this project, when the board saw this item and denied it. And on a concurrent track, the applicant had made application to the staff hearing officer for 2 modifications, I think at that time were needed. And those were denied, and that was appealed by the applicant to the Planning Commission, where at that time another modification request was added. And that project proposed to the Planning Commission was denied, and that was appealed by the applicant to City Council. City Council heard this project on August 17th and voted to approve the project. So they granted the appeal and made several findings, one of which is relevant particularly to this board and your consideration of reviewing the project today is in the City Council's approval of the project, they did make the findings that the requested modifications are consistent with the intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance and were necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. They found that the modifications were consistent in that the proposed residential use on the property was more consistent with the surrounding residential uses in the area versus the commercial use, which is what had been the use of that back unit on this lot. And they felt that that was less intense than if the applicant had chose to retain the commercial use on the property, and it was that change of use in the setback that was requiring 2 of the modifications. So, in essence, what was approved at City Council was a 3 residential unit project with the modification to allow that change of use to occur in the rear setback. and also a modification to provide less than the required 10-foot separation between the two buildings. And they did condition the project that the applicant record a covenant on the property requiring that all the units be occupied by persons who are utilizing the federal Section 8 housing voucher program, and that would be recorded on the property for our standard term for a city affordability covenant, which for rental units is 60 years. The one caveat to that is it's a pretty unique situation for us to condition a project to require Section 8 tenants. It's not our typical way of trying to obtain affordable rental units in the community, because that assumes that program will stay in existence for 60 years, and that's an unknown thing with a federally funded program. So just slight deviation from our normal affordability requirements that we would like to see in order to have some security that it will remain affordable. So that's just some background in your context for however your decision today might be dependent upon the fact that these are affordable units and that they are providing housing for Section 8 tenants. They're just slightly different than the city would normally provide for affordable housing. So I'm available for any questions. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Renee Brook. I'm the Zoning Enforcement Supervisor, and I'm stepping in for Roxanne Malaza, who's been the case planner for this project.
Great. Thanks very much. Do we have on your drawing the 3 modifications that City Council approved? Do we have it?
2 mods.
The 2 mods?
Yes.
Do we have that written in here somewhere? Site plan for location, building setback and separation, and okay, so let's have a look. We have that written in here. Building setback
And the separation.
and modules. Okay, all right. Okay, that's 1, and you have them numbered as 1 and 2. Okay, all right. You want to go ahead, Gil?
Okay, Gil Garcia, representing the project. Woody, on the project, and John Fisher, attorney for the owner. I think the best thing to do is probably go to the landscape plan, since we basically presented this to you before, and we'll probably just go through the same presentation we made to you before. We are enhancing the site and adding open space. You know, it's a site that's fairly constrained, and I think the City Council recognized that, but thought that the improvements we were making were a benefit to the other 2 units that existed, plus they felt that the back unit we were proposing was less intense than the commercial if were not to be because we had, it could continue as a commercial, but we felt strongly it was not the proper thing to do, and I think City Council agreed with us. The new elevation really to the site has to do with the new wall we're putting here, because we are separating and removing 6 feet of the building on this setback. The other elevations remain pretty much the same. There is a roof that's being pitched roof that's being removed because it was not put. It was put on. I guess, and we don't want to leave it on because it requires more modifications. So we want to bring it back to its original building design, which was a flat roof. And in addition to taking it off, I think it reduces the mass bulk and scale. You can see from the front elevation that the existing unit is remaining pretty much the way it is. We are adding a carport for a covered space there. We are adding common open space, 15 by 15 common open space. And we are adding private open space that the Unit 1 did not have before. And of course, private open space that the Unit 2 did not have. And also adding private open space for Unit 3. Putting the trash into one area for the units 1 and 2, and leaving the trash area here for Unit 2. So that's the, and also we're adding a porch at at this location, at the entrance here. You can see it here.
Covered
to
entry?
At the entry, to kind of match more the cottage feeling of this line here. So that's the only really part of the building you could even see, and you have to come way back here and see, but we felt it was important that it had some continuity with the original cottage feel of the house. The fencing is something that is not there now. You'll see it, and of course the large, prominent skyline trees are something that was not is not there now. So I'll just take you back to the windows we're proposing in the new elevation, and the porch is coming out here in front. This is the existing house, and and this you see in the distance is the carport. The rear is just what it is. We are making a cutout here for a light well. And that's the only thing we're doing here. The flat roof remains pretty much the way it is. This elevation doesn't change at all. It just remains like it is, except for the carport that we're at. And in the front here, the carport, this remains like it is. The house remains basically like it is, and the new porch in front. And that's pretty much it.
Okay. So no. Okay.
Colors
It's
would
pretty
match
much the same.
existing.
Yeah.
Colors pretty much match existing.
Okay. Okay. Before we bring it back to the board, I have a few speaker slips here, and I'd ask everybody to keep their time to 2 minutes if they can. We have 4 speaker slips. So we have Silvio, followed by Eustachio Guadagnini. Am I right?
Okay. Just go ahead.
Yes, please. Thanks.
Okay. My name is Silvio Guadagnini. I live at 407 Old Coast Highway. My concerns for the project are my parents own 407 Old Coast Highway and 405.
And where are you in this?
I'm trying to figure it out.
So if this is Old
So-
Coast Highway.
This is the driveway, so we're
Yes.
right here. We own this property.
Okay.
Runs a lane. There are plans for trees along here and a patio area.
No, patio area here.
Okay, you're here.
Exactly. So we have gas, sewage, and water running along the fence, come all the way from the top. So we don't want to see trees that have invasive roots that are going to be able to go onto our property and break up pipes. So I'm concerned about that. I don't want to see trees that are planted that are going to get extremely high and block out the sunlight for the property. Sorry. And then my concern is also that I've been living there for 3 years. Mr. Pritchett has rented to, how's the best way to put it, just bad people. We know that from Operation Gator Roll, if anybody's been following this. There was a stabbing before that. I'd like to see, if possible, a building material that's going to be, I know his property has to come 6 feet away from ours, something that's going to keep down the noise, because he doesn't have a good history of renting to people that are of high quality. I know there's people in there now that are very good, but in that rental that's right next to us, I've had trouble over and over again. I've called the police. I've had to deal with soiled diapers thrown on my side of the property. So if it's possible to have a building material that's going to keep the noise down from my side, I'd appreciate that. That's my concern. Also, parking. I've had to deal with people at 2 in the morning coming in and partying because they'll park on the building in the front. They'll park in those additional parking spaces and stay on their own and drink beer and smoke marijuana and throw garbage on my side again. I don't want to see that. So I'd like to see somehow this stuff noted, that he rents to proper people, that things don't get out of control, that there isn't excessive parking and partying going on, especially when I see something like this patio area there. It just brings back a lot of memories of things that I had to deal with before. Like I said, gang members looking over my side. I could see East Side tattooed on the top of people's shaved heads. I don't want to see that again. So those are my main concerns with the project here. Obviously, if Mr. Pritchett addresses that and he doesn't rent to these kind of people again, it's not going to be a problem. But the trees, too, I'm still concerned about. We don't want something that's going to come in and break up our pipes, or we have to replace the pipes. And I don't want to have to deal with excessive leaves that get taller than our building. I have to go and clean the gutters out all the time. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Okay, just before you go, you understand that this board is an aesthetic board, and this project has been through
City
all
Council.
the different forums here to review, and I'm assuming that you have spoken before those
I
boards?
could not because I was at work the day the city council had their hearing. I wasn't able to show up until 2:30. The meeting started at 2 o'clock. I'm also making myself known so that way these people work for Mr. Pritchett, so hopefully they can get the word to him that I will be coming down to zoning every week and filing a complaint if I have to deal with this stuff again. I know it's not your problem, but if I could have said this to the city council at the time, I would have, but I was working until 2:30, so I wasn't able to make it on time. I'm just kind of making my voice be heard. But I think in this hearing here, you could probably address the trees, I'm assuming, right? And the building materials that take place and kind of what the aesthetics of the outside for. So, you know, I can't say much else. I know this isn't the right venue for everything I've said, but I hope that you can take into consideration some of the things that I've said.
Thanks very much.
Okay? Thank you.
Okay. We are followed by Eustacio, will then be followed by David Munoz.
My name is Eustaquio Guadagnini, and this is the first time I've been to the city being able to speak to somebody about it. I kept quiet in the past, but I thought maybe the city council would not pass this project. Yet they have. And that's my son, Silvio, but I've lived there. In fact, I own the property next door where there's all this buildings going on way back in 74, 75. It was called Grappa Enterprises. 4 of us Italian guys decided to do something after work and do it. Anyway, I am concerned, as my son was, because I've gone down there many times, taking care of the property. I want to make sure that the property stays in good hands, that the people come in are respectful. We've had the fence between us knocked out, people going across it. The noise factor was something else. I've even heard maybe, I don't know how old the boy was, maybe 7, 8 years old, 10, getting beat up in there. I did not get involved because I did not want to get involved because living so close and not knowing the people, but I want Mr. Garcia to realize all of these things because, and even the trees, when I asked you about the trees, you said that's up to the landscaping architect. I thought maybe you would know what kind of trees they got planted there, but that is a concern to me because all the utilities coming through there. And right now, they're only, from the fence, they're only about 2 feet away. So if you're going to be removing that back and then be putting big trees, I've got gas, electrical, water, electricity, telephone, everything going there. So I didn't think this was going to pass, but anyway, it did, and I don't know where it's going to go from here, but I'm against it. We owned the property, like I said, one time, and we had 2 rentals there, and it was pretty good because I lived back there myself until I moved to another home. So I've had people move out of the rentals because of the racket at night, and it's pretty hard. I don't know how Mr. Pritchett can control the Section 8, but maybe the city or whatever it is, I don't know because I'm not involved with it that much, but I know that the quality of people that did come in the past were not what you would want to live next to. And I want you to understand that, Mr. Garcia, because I want to keep an area nice, And then behind there is Westmont College students, and in fact, I just rented upstairs now to a couple of girls who are going to be going to college, and so if you got that patio area, I'm afraid with that patio area, with that Section 8, that people will be hanging out there at all hours of the night and having a good time, and I'd hate to be calling you up to see what you can do about it. Because I will call somebody. That's something that upsets me, and I wish I'd spoken before. I didn't think it would go since 2 boards had disapproved it. I didn't think it was going to go, but I see how it works now. So that's why I'm here speaking.
Okay.
So if you want to ask me any questions, go ahead.
We don't have any questions at the time, but we have, I think, for the majority of the problems that relief that you are seeking for, this board is really not the right forum for it. But
Too late.
We'll do what we can with the
Too
landscaping.
Late. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we have Dave Munoz, followed by Paul Zink.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Dave.
David Munoz. I own the property in front at 401 Old Coast Highway. We've been there for 28 years. We bought the property about 2 years after we moved in. And my concern and it was brought up to zoning before it ever started going through any of the board committees, was the easement that we have onto Mr. Pritchett's property, which in the plans show 12.5-foot area. Exactly. Well, no, actually the other way. It would be from here this way onto his property. And as you can see, with all the building that would impede our parking and ability to go in and out and turn around, that's my concern. It was overshadowed due to all the other concerns and problems with the property, and I felt if this is the time to bring it to you before it goes any further and any more approval is allowed to be with the landscaping and whatnot and carport and all that.
So that's in your legal agreement with this property owner,
Yes.
that you have that?
It says that
It shows it
it says that this is the parking easement, but that's incorrect.
exactly. It shows it that way on Mr. Garcia's plans, but on our plans it does not show it that way.
So you're saying you have an easement from here to somewhere over in here,
Yes.
12 feet from this line over?
Yeah, Mr. Zink will show you those plans with that easement.
That's way over
Yeah,
there.
this is our lawyer, Mr. Doug Fell.
And you're going to speak too, right? Okay. Okay, well, this is great. So
Okay.
we'll get that question
Thanks for
answered.
bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Paul Zink followed by Doug Fell.
I actually got 3 copies of this. I want to pass that down. My name is Paul Zink, and I'm representing David Munoz. What I want to point out is this plan was an approved plan from '77. It was the second speaker who was the actual developer. He owned the whole entire parcel. He was the one who did the lot split. And right over here, you'll notice in 1977 that the parking layout was approved by the City of Santa Barbara, as well as the architecture of the commercial building. So this is the approved plan. This is the property line. If you notice the curb cut that is off of Salinas is a shared curb cut, comes down to here. Here is the property line, and here is the 12.5-foot easement. Now, this easement is on a drawing that was stamped and approved by the City of Santa Barbara. Now, the issues that were at the staff hearing officer had to do with building in the setback, having to do with the existing construction. The issue of the parking was never addressed and never brought up. When the project had ABR denial, it had staff hearing officer denial, and planning commission denial, it was assumed that it was going to be denied at the city council level. It wasn't. So now we are here to say that my client has a legal usage of 12.5 feet. If this for somehow is not maintained, then these 6 parking spaces, which are a required 6 parking spaces for this commercial structure, are no longer valid. Now what do I have? I have a commercial building with 7 parking spaces instead of the 13 that are shown. So that is the issue that's at hand. And I would like the ABR to have a motion in there that the staff and the applicant need to resolve this issue prior to receiving preliminary approval from ABR. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's followed by Doug Fell.
I'm Doug Fell. I'm an attorney, and I represent Angie and Mr. Munoz. Prior to this matter going to the city council, after seeing it being defeated by every board all the way up to council, I had a sit-down meeting with the owner of the property and talked about resolving the easements and the access. He didn't have time to resolve it beforehand. We got to council. We asked the council that they resolve it. The council said, well, that's a little bit beyond our jurisdiction. But as Grant House said, I trust that you, Mr. Pritchett, will take care of the easement issues and resolve them. The minute this project was approved by City Council, I got an email from Mr. Pritchett basically saying, go away. He wasn't ready to talk about it anymore. He did subsequently send emails that were a little bit more cooperative, but to date there's not been any resolution. And basically, as Mr. Sink showed you, And as I'm showing you here, this whole area, which is where these cars are parked, is an easement in favor of this property for easement of ingress and egress. The idea being that Mr. and Mrs. Munoz, their predecessor in interest, gave up an easement for the benefit of this property, but they kept it for daytime use to support the businesses that are down here. So right now, there just isn't any room to build the project that Mr. Garcia is presenting to you. That may be a legal issue. We may have to go to court, but I would think that based on what Mr. Sink has showed you, that this is approved city plans that show exactly the same thing I'm telling you. I think you have to stop and think about where you're going, what you're going to do, and how you're going to do it. I'll assure you that if it doesn't get resolved favorably, we'll go back to council. And this time, council's going to understand it and deal with it. And so we'll hope you guys can take a shot at it and see if we can't come to some way of making it work. Okay?
Thanks very much.
Thank you all.
I appreciate you coming forward. With that, do you have a speaker, sir?
I'm with the team.
He's the applicant. He's the applicant. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Before we come back to the board, I wondered if staff have ability to shed any light on this, seeing as this applicant has come back before us with what I would consider a document that does not truly reflect,
Sure.
what the correct easements are, and et cetera, et cetera.
As I think you're aware, this project has quite a history in that it originally started as an enforcement case, one that was referred to the city attorney's office, and there was a lot of communication with the property owners, attorneys, and the city attorney's office in the beginning. And at that time, the city attorney's office had started to do some work to interpreting this parking easement, the shared parking easement between the two properties, but eventually stopped that effort as the applicant decided to try to move forward with asking for permission to keep the unit as part of abating the enforcement case. And the understanding that ultimately this is a civil issue, the city will make sure that the parking that they say they have on their property is on their property and can function as it needs to function as 6 required parking spaces. And so what that will ultimately probably mean is more staff work on the back end of this project before permits are issued and occupancy is granted. If we assume that we're going forward with an approved project, we'll put in that effort to make sure that that easement makes sense for all the properties. But again, it is really a civil issue because the city is not a party to these easement agreements, and so if the two parties decide that they want to just cease having this agreement, a property owner installs a fence along their property line and basically just doesn't allow one or the other to access the driveway or the parking spaces, that could happen. It would compromise this project. And so we have to consider that when we approve development on this lot. But unless the city becomes a party to these parking agreements, we don't have a lot of say in what ultimately happens with them.
Mr. Chair, I have a question for staff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Renee, I heard you say that of one of the things that I heard you say, you said that the city staff has to make sure that the applicant demonstrates that they've been able to park their project on their site. Is that
correct? And so
is that accurate?
Correct, and
Okay.
I won't speak for the city attorney's office, but my presumption is that the only way we could do that is if there's a three-party parking agreement where the city is a party to that, and we know that this issue has been worked out between the two owners, and it can't be changed without the city's agreement and notification. I just can't imagine any other situation that
Well, I
would
can-
give us the confidence that these spaces could always be accessed.
But I couldn't do a project where I park on my neighbor's property and you guys give me an approval for it, so that it doesn't make sense. If I brought a project in of this nature and said, here's my 6 parking spaces, they're on my neighbor's parcel,
Correct.
you guys would throw me out on the street because you would never allow us to get an approval for parking that was not on our parcel.
Correct. And there is an existing agreement between these two property owners to have shared access to these spaces. And as far as I know, that still exists. It was just a matter of interpretation that the city attorney had started to work on that ultimately ceased. So we would have to take that up again, knowing that this project is moving forward.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I have
Hang on
a
sec.
question.
Hang on a second. May I ask one question? What Mr. Fell stated, by the way, Mr. Fell, can we have that copy of that document that you provided for the record? And then secondly, if I gather from both Mr. Fell and yourself that this information was provided to City Hall, to City Council, at the City Council meeting.
I did not present.
This was not presented.
Correct.
So they were never aware that this was an issue.
No, not true.
That was
I believe it.
Just please, one at a time, okay? Was City Council aware at the time that they reviewed this project that this issue existed?
Yes.
Renee.
I won't.
I believe it came up at the council hearing. I honestly don't recall it all, but I believe that came up, and the city attorney stated that it was a civil issue.
Okay, Mr. Fell.
Ms. Munoz raised the question that that the council conditioned the project on Mr. Pritchett and the Munoz reaching a resolution so that this would all work. City attorney said that's a civil matter, we will not get involved in that. And so we had not gone to the mat on this because I thought we had reached an agreement ahead of the city council meeting. After the city council meeting was over, it all went away. Now, we're trying to make sure that everybody understands it exists and that it gets resolved before hopefully you or city
Correct.
council on appeal has to deal with it.
So City Council seemed to, in my view, it seemed that City Council, with the knowledge that there was this issue, this easement, and they wanted it to be resolved, they saw fit to proceed with the review and still approve the project, knowing that what was presented at the meeting on this site plan was probably either not accurate or may not be what can be approved in the finality.
Just so I understand, the plan you're pointing to is the older one from the 70s? Or
I'm the
you
one
mean-
that has come before us now
Correct.
has information on it that is way beyond any kind of agreements that they have, or that they even have the right to be able to draw this kind of information on an easement that they share with another owner, and they are coming to approvals for.
Correct. Back to your original question, City Council did approve the project knowing there were some unresolved issues with that easement.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question for Renee again, is the proposed parking for the proposed project will not work if the owner to 401 maintains his parking. They both can't work together. It's impossible.
Correct.
So it's not a civil issue. It's a parking issue. It's a physical reality that the two parkings are in direct conflict.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I just needed a bit of clarification from...
Mr. Fell?
Yeah. Do the applicants have an easement in your area an existing easement? Is this part, as it is depicted on the plan,
He gets on the ninth.
is this area part of their easement?
This property has an easement.
We need that on the record. I'm
This is
sorry.
part of the easement.
That's just what I clarification.
This is, I'm trying to not be too legal, but this property has an easement for ingress and egress and the right to park on a portion of the property in the evenings,
In the evenings.
not during the day. It has ingress and egress during the day. And there is a separate ingress and egress easement that is the one in purple, which prevents the parking where they're proposing their parking.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you for answering my question about the easement. Thank you.
Okay, Tony, you had a few words to say? Because afterwards, we'll be saying...
As I understand it, when the city council, at the city council hearing, Mrs. Munoz stood up and spoke and said that there had been conversations between the Munoz and Mr. Pritchett regarding coming to a resolution of the parking between the two properties, which, as the easements currently exist, are difficult for both properties. And Mr. Fell is telling me that that has fallen apart. I have not seen that communication.
Okay.
So the city council took the posture, with the city attorney sitting there, that obviously these issues would need to be worked out to the satisfaction of whoever's issuing the building permit if this project is to go forward with the current design. And they said, we'll leave that to the parties to work out. City council was not going to get involved, in large part because the staff said, don't get involved and leave this to the parties to
Thank
work
you.
out. And
Okay.
that's where we left it.
Okay, we bring it back to the board.
I have one comment.
Yep.
Just simply comment, as the designers of the project, this is what we were giving, and this is what we've always been going through. So just so you know, this easement is not that easement. So there's a difference evidently in easements, that I have a recorded easement here of one kind, that's evidently another one. And
So you have a different easement to this one.
well, this one is the one we were given, and this is the one
When you
we're-
say we were given, what's been recorded in by
Well, obviously...
by law?
Obviously,
That's what I want to know. What's in the books and the record hall recorded for these properties? I mean, I know whenever I do a project, that's what I have to go get. And I'm assuming that this is one of them that's
Well, that's what
recorded.
the owner has a responsibility to provide you all of the documents.
Right.
And that's what you asked for.
Right.
This is what we got.
Okay, and that's different from this. That's different from this.
What you're looking at, so.
Okay, you can have a look and give it back to us. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the board for questions. Keith? I would just get this portion of it through, and then we'll come
I have
back.
a question for
Yeah.
staff and the rest of us. I don't even know why we're looking at this unless this issue's resolved.
That's exactly my question.
You know, I want to see a stamped survey that shows the easements so we know what's on what property and whether physically the layouts work. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels. So that's my question.
I'm pretty... Dawn, and you concur? Gary? Well,
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion with indefinite continuance back to full board, that the applicant is to resolve the all easement issues and come back with a site survey clearly identifying all easements with an explanation of their purpose and use.
That's very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Under discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Sorry. With
Part
that...
of, the reason I'm saying it is your motion, obviously working things out with the neighbor depends in part upon whether if the proposed parking that is in front of you is acceptable to you, then it's
I'm
easier to
not.
work it out with the
All
neighbor.
those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Against, motion carries. I understand what you're saying, but that has to be resolved before you can get this board to approve something that we are seeing
could do
clearly
it
on paper is not a legal document.
You could do that before final approval.
I'm sorry, we won't do it before preliminary
All
either.
right,
Yeah,
You're creating your own nightmare.
No, somebody else is creating the nightmare.
yeah.
No, the nightmare exists. Now you've added to it.
Okay.
Yeah.